for what is happening, and you don't learn from the lessons of the past, you will suffer. Well, we didn't want to put any of our own, certainly in terms of the thematic material, we didn't want to put any of our own baggage. I mean, we had no interest in putting our messages into this movie, but we thought that we should honor Tolkien by putting his messages into it.
Tyrannous reformation of the earth, our place. That is really why he hated machines. Of course, it's perfectly true. He hated the internal combustion engine for perfectly good practical reasons. I mean, noise, congestion, destruction of cities, and many people greatly agree with him now. Into a secondary world that may not be very much more pleasant, but it's at any rate very different. And there are terrors as well as beauties in the secondary world. And why should what he offered, if it is escape, not be the escape of the prisoner, which in other contexts is regarded as a very noble thing to try to do, to get away?
There is no such thing as a natural death. Nothing that happens to man is ever natural, since his presence calls the whole world into question. All men must die, but for every man his death is an accident, and even if he knows it, he consents to it, an unjustifiable violation.
The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet, until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet, and whether then, I cannot say.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another read-along book club discussion. I don't know, whatever we're calling it, about the Lord of the Rings. We are finishing up with the Fellowship of the Ring today. So the end, second half, however you want to refer to it, chapters 5 through 10 of Book 2, the Fellowship of the Ring, going from Lothlórien to the breaking of the Fellowship, which I gotta imagine the breaking of the Fellowship. If you're a first-time reader going through this and you come up to that chapter, man, that's gotta punch you in the chin there a little bit, especially after what happened, I guess, last time, the sort of the finish of our last stream with the Mines of Moria, what happened there. But man, a real great read, roller coaster going through this, and some of the best, hopefully you guys agree with this, best imagery, best prose, best kind of, just amazing stuff from Tolkien. So without further ado, Nathan, Amanda, Manethrin, you are back with us after having been gone for a week. If you want to just kind of let us know how you fared on your bye week and what you thought of what we're going through today.
Oh, I fared very well on my bye week. Had a nice afternoon, evening / weekend with my wife, and just really enjoyed that while still catching up nicely with the discussion you guys had last week, which was awesome. And then these 5 chapters are just absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely love the differences between the movie and the books. and how much they really hit the nail on the head, I think, with presenting Lothlórien on screen. With the silvery goldish shades of green and blue. It was phenomenal watching this stuff. I remember 20 years ago watching this stuff come up on screen and just watching it for the first time and saying, oh, holy shit, they nailed it.
It is crazy to think that this was 20 years ago for that movie. And I think you're right. Yeah, nailed it on a lot of this stuff. Let's go, Dane. Rocking the Alex, what did you call his setup? The Howard Stern setup. Yeah.
Yeah, and fuck you guys, because like just before this started, you all had shades on. And then
I mean, I still have mine on.
I know. Well,
second of all, man, dropping the F-bomb this early. If we were monetized, we'd be demonetized.
No, that'll never happen. The only way we get monetized is we'll have to delete all of our content.
Probably true.
No, it's this was a good section. I can't wait to dive into it. But no, brought back a lot of fond memories from it. I think when we get there, I'll say it's near and dear to my heart is all the cool swag that they get. I just love that part in an adventure story. Is like, all right, time to get a power up. So I'm kind of stoked to get to talk about that. But let's move on.
Alex?
What is there to say about this one? The entire Lothlórien section is just an absolute flex of prose, like probably the best ever, like in the history of the English language. So massive props there, just a tremendous showing.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree with that as well. And then here's what we're going to do. Before I introduce our guest, we got in, as Alex likes to put it, right there in the center of the Voltron. We'll introduce him in 1 second. First, I'm just going to hop through and just thank everyone in chat. So we have Lady Balefire is here. We got, let's see. We got Matt. Matt is here as he's one of our pretty solid lore experts. So I'm sure some good questions and comments as always. Thank you for coming here. Gadfly Fiction, who was on with us last time and was an excellent guest. So thank you again for coming out and being here in the comments as well. And let's see. I think that might be. Oh, there we go. Hey, Kale's here. Kale is a regular as well, and we appreciate you coming out to be here for this conversation also. All right. And with that, hey, wow. Okay. Trip showed up, guys. That's big. The time zone thing, she hates us for doing it this early as is. So I'm going to make fun of her and say, hey, we appreciate you getting up out of bed and being here for this stream. Thanks for making it out on a Saturday.
In fairness, maybe she didn't get up. Maybe she never went to sleep.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, we can't make assumptions.
Can't rule that out.
But without further ado, VicRattleheadM, man, a supporter of the channel. You've been in our Discord. You've been commenting on YouTube videos and things like that for a while with some pretty good insights. And this was a good opportunity for us to have you on. So please, sir, the floor is yours. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you think of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay, so yeah, my handle is Vic, and I chose it because it's the mascot of my favorite band, Megadeth. If those who know.
Yep.
And I'm from New Delhi, India, born and raised here. And my first introduction to Tolkien was right after I finished Hound of the Baskervilles, the Sherlock Holmes story.
ACD.
And it was Fellowship of the Ring was in the library. It was a hardbound. I got it for a week, finished it. It never looked back. It was just amazing.
Nice, that's awesome, man.
Awesome. Man, reading some classic Sherlock Holmes, some Tolkien. I mean, that's a good literary pedigree, I feel like. I'm going to be honest. I have read very little Sherlock Holmes myself, which Dane is probably going to start throwing spears about. But
yeah, probably. Dude,
Yeah,
it's
Sherlock
so...
Holmes was my gateway basically to all fantasy.
What?
Awesome.
But Sherlock's Holmes, it's not fantasy. It's like cool mystery novel.
Basically-
It's very, very readable, but...
Yeah, if you go through The Hound of the Baskervilles, the first half reads like a fantasy story, and then things start
Deliberately.
getting clear. Yeah.
What is Hound of the Baskervilles your favorite ACD story, or do you have another one like Sign of the Four? I know is a pretty popular one.
I think
and Study of Scarlet?
or Five Orange Pips is the favorite, I think. Yeah.
Ah,
I
All
think
right.
Five Orange Pips is a great story. And it's not just 'cause
I've
it
heard
has-
that's highly overrated, though.
No. Underrated. If anything, underrated.
Well, now you
Ladies.
now you know where you're going to start your Conan Doyle reads, Pips.
there's no evading
I
it now.
have read some. I
Okay.
mean, how many books did he write? Like 20 or 30 Sherlock Holmes books, right? Like, there's a lot.
It's like 3 volumes.
Well,
A lot
they've
of them
been
are short
compiled,
stories.
But there's a whole mess of the short stories, right?
Mhm.
I do
Yeah,
kind of
and then there's
when authors used to write books like 20 season episodes of television. They're just like, all right, here's this month's short story, guys, have fun with it. Whereas now it seems like nothing is under 400 pages, so it takes like 2.5 years to get anything, or longer.
and 400
if
pages is
you're,
a short book. These days. I mean, most things are like 800 or 900 pages. It seems like.
Spoken like a true Jordan fan.
Well, I was just gonna say, what's the quote that like I lack the time to be brief.
Well, I think it's
So.
interesting because phone book fantasy is a legitimate accusation against sort of the modern fantasy writing, and a lot of people sort of blame Tolkien for that. And I'm going to be honest, after having read Fellowship of the Ring, this is not phone book fantasy. This is fairly clipping along pretty decently. This is not a ton of wasted time here.
You can't blame Tolkien for phone book fantasy because he invented
No.
fantasy.
Yeah, right. Well, and if you think that there are any wasted words in this book at all, you are not paying attention. Everything is intentional that he put down on page. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the guy went and rewrote a section because he got the moon placement wrong and realized it well after he finished it. He's like, oh, I got to go back and fix that.
Yeah.
Just more time spent in Lothlórien. It's all good.
Yeah. Trip is correct. Flowers for Algernon actually that's a good short story. I like that one.
It's also a good Joe Don Baker movie.
Oh, they
No?
did make
Anybody?
that. It's like a black and white movie, right?
No,
It's,
it's like called Charlie, and it has like Joe Don Baker in it.
I
All right,
feel
we
like
can
I've
look it up.
seen.
We're
I feel like
going
I've
off
seen
on a
pieces
tangent.
of it in like high school literature class or something like that. I thought that it was like an old black and white movie, but it's been a long time. All right, yeah, like you said, let's go ahead and start. So, chapter 6, Lothlórien, which basically starts right after they got out into the Dimril Dale, right? So they are clear of the mines. But not clear of the threat, right? So they're not really allowed to just kind of sit there with the loss that the party just suffered. They have to continue because the orcs are likely going to pursue them out of the mines, right? What did you guys think of this this kind of introduction to the other side of Moria?
I think it was good. The especially in the movies, they sort of covered very briefly with the give them a moment for pity's sakes. Where like we can't stop by nightfall. These hills will be crawling with orcs. Like I think that sort of captured the general main plot of this chapter pretty well. But reading it here, it really gives you sort of it paints a very vivid picture.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I like that we continue to just get more. We just continue to get more lore and kind of world building. So you have Durin's Stone, you have the relationship now. So we learned about the relationship between Durin's people, Durin's folk, and the Elven kingdoms on the western side of the Misty Mountains. And now we kind of come to learning the history of Lothlórien and Durin's folk and that kind of relationship. The sense of the world in decay and sort of the shrinking of the realms of kind of the good folk, if you will, I think is pretty strong. The little knowledge that Legolas has of the elves of Lothlórien, I felt pretty strongly. What did you guys have any thoughts about any of that?
Yeah, you would think that that would not be the case. But that just kind of, in terms of your world building, it kind of deepens this understanding as you delve into the other writings of Tolkien, that there's a big difference between the elves in Mirkwood and the elves in Lothlórien, and then you got the elves in Rivendell, and it's faction society within the races, and it's very intelligent division, because it's not showing things as monolithic creations, and I think it shows a great realization of what the world actually brings.
Yeah, I think it does elevate it to another level, that elves aren't elves. There are many nations of elves that are not. It's not a hive mind, which I think is another thing that I think a lot of modern fantasy loses, where elves and men fight orcs, whereas here a lot of times it's the dwarves of the Lonely Mountain and the men of Lake Town versus the goblins of wherever. It creates sort of a really a more realistic and more fulfilling and engaging world. To repeat your point, Vic, what do you got?
There's a line.
Yeah, it seems
there's
like,
a line that I thought was. Oh, sorry, please.
Yeah, it seems like elves have stopped traveling over Middle Earth now. Like the Second Age is over, and now they're like going off into the sunset to the Grey Havens and whatnot, but not visiting even their own brethren in Lothlórien, which is supposed to be so good. But it's just like their inner fire, or maybe a desire to travel, has been quenched.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. They're burned out. They don't have a. Yeah, they don't want to continue living. Almost, it seems like.
Especially when you think that so Legolas has already. We know that he has traveled because we see him in Rivendell from Mirkwood, right? So like, as far as elves that travel go, we know that Legolas has at least traveled the world once, right? Potentially, what we learn in Lorien about the elves who speak their own tongues versus the tongues of sort of outside folk would indicate that maybe Legolas might actually have been, a little more broadly traveled if he, was sent out by the elves of Mirkwood to go and attend the, to Rivendell, right? So he might be a little bit more of a world traveler, but you still hear him talking about Lothlórien, and he talks about how their leaves don't fall, their boughs are laden with yellow flowers. The floor of the wood is golden, and golden is the roof, and its pillars are of silver, for the bark of the tree is smooth and gray. So still our songs in Mirkwood say, my heart would be glad if I were beneath the eaves of that wood. So basically he's saying that like everything I know about this place, which is supposed to be one of the great sort of havens of the elves in the world, and our kindred, in fact a fairly geographically near kindred, like all I know about it is from songs. Which is pretty crazy, and I felt kind of hit the reader sort of right between the eyes in terms of the isolationism, the what Vic was talking about of them not sort of traveling and going anymore. And we learn more about that with the elves of Lothlórien and the ships, I feel like, later in the chapter.
Yeah, I mean, it really emphasizes that, oh shit, Lothlórien is really a mystical place. If the mystical guy is saying, man, this place is really mystical.
Yeah, fair point.
And it seems like all the adults, like we can call them adults because they're taller than the hobbits, but they're more mature as well. So all the adults take the hobbits under their wing. They show them how to be a bit more stoic. Don't grieve right now. We have to go. We have to reach Lothlórien. It's important, and then you can grieve. Like,
I'm going to chime in here and
even
say,
Gimli is quite hurrying Frodo along.
I want to build up. I think this is Gimli's best chapter so far, and this is kind of where Gimli, gets singled out for a couple of reasons, but I think he really grows as a character on you because he's just been introduced, he went through a bit of trauma. But one thing that really stands out for me here is one, they introduce kind of that lingering conflict between elves and dwarves again, and that the elves insist basically that. All right, Gimli, you can come, but you're going the way blindfolded. And then Aragorn steps up as a leader and says, no, we're not going to single him out. So if Gimli has to be blindfolded according to your laws, you're going to blindfold all of us, even Legolas. So I always like that little tidbit. Good bit from Aragorn, but also Gimli gets a bit of center stage here. So.
And border security. And what happened to that?
That's true. The elves of Lothlórien.
Yeah.
Man, Vic
and
just base comments, man.
the other thing too the other thing that I like about that though is that in the movie, what I didn't like was how he treats Haldir, how Gimli treats Haldir when they're introduced, and starts and says a curse in Dwarven tongue to them, and it really isn't fitting for the relationship, I don't think. And in the book, it's downplayed so well that you understand that there is animosity there in general between the kindred, but it's not something that can't be overcome. In what's presented in the movie, it'd be tough to really overcome that type of introduction.
That's a good point. In the book, it's more that we haven't had dealings with these people for a very long time, and there's some distrust, but not necessarily hot kind of anger, right?
Yeah, because Gimli just comes back and nukes it.
Yeah. So one thing
and
that we
he
got
never
in this
stubs
section,
his toe.
yeah. One thing that we got in this section that we had gotten previous in the movie, so the movie shifted this up, is the revelation to the party that the Hobbit is walking around with a king's ransom, maybe even an entire kingdom's ransom, basically several fold times the value of the Shire, and I liked the way that they brought it up. So here's a pretty hobbit skin to wrap an elven princeling in when it gets revealed that they're like, dude, I don't even know how you're still walking. You got skewered by this giant troll, and you've been walking it off like a champ this whole time. And everyone's like, sorry for making you run all this way. Let's see if you're going to die on us here shortly. And then it's just oh, never mind. The dude's got the equivalent of force fields on him. I love it. He had a bruise, right? That's all he got.
One of the rings was bent, but
yeah.
I'm going to say I think the movie did a good job of keeping the events kind of tighter in the timeline, because it seems like something that you would inspect as soon as you got a chance to. But again, I always like this kind of the there's more to this Hobbit than meets the eye. But I guess that's also in keeping with getting some swag, which is coming up in this section.
Yeah,
Yep.
And I also
Very,
think
very true.
the removal of Durin's Stone from the movies is, it's a really great thing to have in the books. But I also get how, man, you got to cut that in the movies. I mean, that's a 5 minute scene that it doesn't contribute to the overall narrative. Which never let it be said that the White Cloaks demand a word for word adaptation.
Although some of these poems, again, anybody who says you skip the poetry in this book, I increasingly don't understand the number of brain cells that person must have to be able to rub together. Like, you start getting so Legolas talking about Nimrodel, and I mean, just so beautiful, the language. It's really hitting like all of the things that you would want in terms of giving insight into the differences between the characters, because we hear the difference between Elven and sort of dwarven poetry between Moria and here in Lorien, and like what they focus on in their language, what the poem actually like focuses on, and how it describes things. You learn history, you learn the present, it's accomplishing like 4 or 5 different things at one time, and is just fantastic. I really liked the poem that Legolas gave there.
And there is a whole Elvish poem, I think. The whole poem is written in Elvish and you can't understand a word of it. But it's still there.
Is that in the next chapter?
I think it's in the next chapter, the Mirror of Galadriel. I think it's when they're talking about the fall of Gandalf, right? Is it?
It might be a few chapters ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
I think it's a few chapters ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Farewell to Lorien. It's near the end.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, Alex, your dad probably could read that one, right?
You couldn't have, yeah. It's crazy. Man. Gadfly's going to come through for us on this one.
Gadfly's gonna... Perfect.
Well, that being said, I wonder if Google Translate has some Tolkien nerds in the background there, and if you just hover your iPhone over it, if it'll translate for you.
I'm pretty sure that's how Google Translate started.
Oh, really?
Tolkien fans did it, and then Google was like, "Have you considered doing the Spanish with this?
Have you considered doing this in a more useful sort of enterprise?" And they're like, "No, that never occurred to us."
I mean, isn't that the joke that basically every website on the internet started with either Tolkien nerds or furries, and then it was just slowly adapted to other things?
It just became more mainstream. I feel like the treetop sort of flet with the elves, with Haldir, and the arrival of Gollum and the orcs kind of passing by was all done fairly well. I feel like not a whole lot to say here other than that it continues, I think, to do a good job of really imbuing tone into the passages that you're reading, right? Like you never get like a full respite for the characters. Like you feel them start to feel safe, things like get a little of an upbeat, and then there has to be something kind of creepy and like mysterious and threatening that has to come back to continue to push things forward.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's you've got this journey. You've got the guys saying we need to get moving, but then you've got this stuff coming on behind it that reinforces the need for this push. And it's like, we can talk about, well, we don't want to talk about the Wheels of Prime, but it's like you've got all these Trollocs and then they disappear for the next 6 episodes, and there's no antagonist push. And Tolkien doesn't forget the need for that, even though you're saying the characters have the need to get moving, but let's have a bit of reality, and we're going to show you why they need to get moving as well.
Yeah, plus the characters are emotionally almost destroyed. Their best member is gone. But still they're having to go through all this hardship, sleeping in trees, watching behind their back, keeping alert all the time. There's no rest.
I also think we again, some of the excellent humor in this book, when they're like, okay, it's time to go from tree to tree. Here's a rope. And Legolas is like, okay, maybe I can do this, but none of the others are going to be able to do it. And their response was, no, it's fine. When other people come, we have 3 ropes that we can use. I just I have to imagine everybody else just being like, okay, how do 3 ropes help us more than 1 rope?
I liked the rope bridge passage because again, it overcame an obstacle, right? Like, hey, these rivers going through here, that the map is what the map is, and you can't forget where you are and what you're passing through. So if we're going to cross these rivers that are very important in the world that Tolkien established, you have to cross them, right? So he can't just ignore them. He has to actually have that crossing occur. But there's also, again, we're learning about the characters, the different characters and how they cross. So I think it was Mary who was like the most kind of just like, whatever, just kind of went across. And then Sam was very much like clutching onto the ropes and sort of going across.
I think it was Pippin. Pippin was.
It might have been Pippin. Yeah, it might have been Pippin.
I was.
Similar to the way that their reactions around the boats, I think, kind of reinforces character.
Yep.
And I also liked that I'm going to attribute this potentially, and the chat can maybe can help us out here if I'm off on my mark here, that this is some more of Tolkien's sort of military service history. That the rope bridge that he describes is very much a expeditionary rope bridge that militaries and sort of adventuring, sort of very austere kind of adventure groups and things like that still use to this day, using that 3 rope configuration for a bridge. So I kind of like that it's like, it's magical. There's elves, there's all this stuff. And then there's also this eminently practical thing that you as the reader can recognize as something that we still use today. But maybe I was the only one who was interested in the rope bridge.
I didn't realize there was a more practical aspect to it. I'll be honest. I took it as a joke that it was, okay, now imagine Gimli trying to walk a tightrope with like one rope to kind of like lean on. But I got to give this book even more credit now. I didn't realize it was a reference to something that actually was used. So.
Yep.
Yeah,
we
did this stuff in Boy Scouts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Boy Scouts use that same sort of rope bridge kind of design of just toss across 3 ropes, and you put your feet on the bottom one, and then you can kind of lean and brace yourself against the others, and it's very stable. You can get across with a pretty heavy load. It works super well, and it has not changed for probably thousands of years of people getting across gaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can move on to the Mirror of Galadriel. Is there anything that we think that we've missed?
I'm just going to add one comment, and I think it was from earlier that Alex was pointing out that Tolkien loved himself some trees. I think that really comes forward in the passages about Lothlórien, but to go with what Nate said about the prose here, you could kind of tell that this was probably Tolkien's, one of his preferred areas to basically go to town on some of the description. Vic's got it.
I mean,
very pretty pictures in here too, but anyway, Alex made the comment earlier, and then when I'm reading through some of the description of trees, I'm like, okay, I get it now. He really likes trees.
Yeah. Well, it just sets you in a nice. It sets you in the nice peaceful area amidst the turmoil. You know, he does a really good job of just setting your mind in the description and letting you have that respite from the toils and tribulations as the reader. And that's what impressed me about that chapter so much, and why I enjoyed it so daggone much, because it was just kind of like, boy, I remember reading it the first time before the movies came out and thinking, man, this place sounds magnificent. It sounds like me on one of our Boy Scout campouts into woods that I've never seen but always wanted to go to.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were saying this in kind of the backstage before we went live. This chapter, really the next couple chapters here, while we're still in Lothlórien, is I think the part that best matches or epitomizes with the intro that we have for this series. Which thanks again to Nerdporial, who just showed up in the chat for helping us put that together, and also Nate for doing some voice acting there to help us put that together. But yeah, like his love for nature and the sort of natural beauty of the world, and the identification of that as superior to, you know, industrialized, built up, man-made, those types of things, I think is really clear in how he talks about Lothlórien. So yeah, Nate actually, have you shown what you're smoking today yet? I know you had it last time too.
Is it the long bottom
Yep.
leaf?
Nope. Capstan.
The original capstan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we think we missed anything from Lothlórien, or can we move on to the Mirror of Galadriel?
Yeah, let's
I'm
advance.
struggling to remember. Do they meet Galadriel and Celeborn in this chapter, or is it in the Mirror of Galadriel?
Mirror.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the mirror, because the Mirror of Galadriel starts with them basically arriving to Karas Galadon. Probably mispronouncing that. You guys can make fun of me in the chat. Because Haldir says, "Here is the city of the Galadrim, where dwell Lord Celeborn and Galadriel, the Lady of Lorien. We cannot enter here, for the gates do not look northward." I love that. That's a detail that he throws in. Like, here's the big city. We can't actually enter here. We have to walk around it because the gate's on the other side. And you're like, why? Like, the only reason that that's the case is that he laid out the city and like where the gates are. That was built beforehand, and so like he had it in his mind. It was mapped out. All of this was there. And so he's like, yep, they're coming from Moria. They're crossing these rivers. They're showing up here. And they're like, they're going to have to walk around. I was a big fan of that. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. That's how I imagined that happening.
We were talking about
He's just
how,
elongating the trip for the bigger cab fare.
right?
Maybe he described some more trees.
Dan, you and I are in the exact same boat.
There you go. Phone book fantasy, everyone. They had to walk around.
Aldir is running up the meter, basically.
Yep. What I was going to say was we had a conversation in our Discord on another topic about sort of, you know, you give all-time great fantasy authors the benefit of the doubt. So in the case of Tolkien, I would look at that and say, oh, well, the dwarves of Moria and the elves of Lothlórien don't have a great relationship, so they never needed a gate on, you know, that side. So it would make sense that they wouldn't have one. See, look at that brilliant world building. But I think you're probably right. I think he designed Lothlórien and he was like, shit, I don't want to pivot the city. That's not how I drew it on the map. So they have to go around.
Does it provide any defensive benefit in terms of battle to limit yourself to one gate, though?
I don't think Lothlórien is
It
super
could,
worried about
because
that.
on the way to Lothlórien there are a lot of rivers, and crossing a ford is always the most vulnerable you are. So if the enemy sees that even after we cross the ford there is no gate, so they will not be encouraged to attack from that side, maybe.
I guess there's a question there, and maybe some of the people in the chat here. We have a few really deep lore readers in the chat can help us out. Has Lórien ever been seriously threatened? Like, is that even the thing that that? I guess as the reader, I was a little bit surprised to even think that Lórien would have gates. Like, I would just think that like the river and the forests are the walls of Lórien, you know?
Yeah, when Moria got taken over by orcs, I think that's when they took care of security.
I guess that's a good point, because we do learn in these chapters, right, that a lot of the elves of Lórien went to basically fight, presumably Durin's Bane and the orcs coming out of Moria. Right? Am I misremembering that that's kind of the evil that Gimli says that we didn't start, and then Legolas says, like, but evil nonetheless, or something like that, right?
Well, I think it's the bigger issue is that, it's right next door to Mirkwood, which is fairly close to Dol Guldur. So there's sort of a, it's not quite Gondor, which is right next door to Sauron, but it's pretty close. So it makes sense that there's a some border patrol, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, here's the thing. Again, from Legolas right after he gives the poem, right? So this is but a part, for I have forgotten much, which hit me as the reader again, the idea that elves forget things. I mean, I know that you'd sort of have to know that they would, but again, that just reminded me of kind of the fading of the world more than just a thing that elves are sometimes forgetful.
And
but
didn't
he says
Legolas's mother also die near where they exited Moria? Am I misremembering that?
Ooh, that would be a piece of information that I don't have. I'm just going off of kind of what's written here, where it says that that the story that he told is how sorrow came upon Lothlórien when the dwarves awakened evil in the mountains. So, like you said, I think that the fall of Moria is when Lothlórien became threatened.
Vic, I had to look it up because I thought you were right. It appears that Legolas's mother is only in the Peter Jackson Hobbit series. Which, I cannot judge you for that. I do it all the time to conflate those two things. So,
I will say that I got into a conversation in the Discord where we were talking about Radagast. And I had totally imported Radagast's role in Mirkwood and like identifying the necromancer Sauron there, all that stuff. Like I have like not even seen the Hobbit movies. Like I've seen bits and pieces of them, but I haven't actually just seen any one of them in its totality. And yet somehow I still have this idea that Radagast, kind of warned the White Council about what was going on in Mirkwood. So, lore osmosis.
Whoa.
What do we think of the first look of old Celeborn and Galadriel?
Power couple, basically.
right?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Power couple.
I found it kind of interesting reading through it, just how much more of a prominent position Celeborn got compared to Galadriel, because he speaks a ton more. And like in the film, I think he says like one line. It's like, "Where is Gandalf?" Because I much desire to speak with him. And then he basically exits stage left. But this, it's
Better
basically
than
like
Rings of Power that just killed him.
oh, he's gonna come back.
They're like, we don't,
And
we don't
Celeborn,
do
I
this.
think, never went to the Undying Lands. I don't think.
No, or at least he was running Lothlórien after Galadriel dipped out.
Yeah.
But no, in fairness to the movies, if I had Cate Blanchett playing Galadriel, I also wouldn't have Celeborn saying a whole lot. So,
It's like, hey, you're blocking her lighting. Get the hell out.
The thing that stuck out to me in comparison to the movies is how much more friendly Galadriel is in in this book, whereas in the movies she seriously does come off as almost borderline alien. It was great because it really sort of gave this sort of magical sense to her. But here she's giving people hugs, and I can't imagine Cate Blanchett's Galadriel has ever hugged anybody.
Like in the movie, it's like she's HAL 9000, basically. She's staring at everyone and no one at the same time.
Yeah. I think the part that epitomizes that difference, right? So Celeborn was concerned about Gandalf. I guess we can say that. He did ask for them to tell the tale in full, right? So, tell us what happened. So that part from the movie, I guess, is kind of right. But they're like, yep, Durin's Bane, the Balrog of Morgoth, showed up, and Gandalf, he fell. And Celeborn was like, man, if I had known that was stirred again in Moria, had I known that you guys had encountered it, I would have forbidden you to pass the northern borders, and I wouldn't have let you come in here. And then Galadriel is like, kind of, hand on his arm and like, no, that would have been harsh. I think these people, they're good. We should let them in. Stop being mean to our guests. So it is a very different character than what we see in the movie. I like that.
Does anyone know the reason why Glorfindel did not come with them? Why didn't he join the Fellowship?
We had some speculation in a previous stream about them thinking, well, if you already got Gandalf with you, what's another, A-list tier superpower going to do for your party? And that keeping Merry and Pippin and Sam together, along with Frodo, would probably, help with the power of friendship, because it was really about keeping Frodo in a good headspace. I think maybe that's what they were thinking going forward.
Yeah, because Glorfindel could go toe to toe with the Witch King, like it's nothing.
Or the Balrog, but
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I think we'll get there where this section ends. But what's still fun or interesting about Lord of the Rings is it actually feels like an organic story, right?
Mhm.
Plans go awry. They have to change course. They have to do things and improvise on the fly. And there doesn't feel anything that's completely predestined about where the story goes. So, I don't know. All right.
Glorfindel killed like 3 Balrogs. Yeah, exactly. Would have made.
He's Middle-earth's version of Chuck Norris.
Yeah, well, Ecthelion is the one that killed 3 Balrogs.
If I fight him
only
right-handed,
killed 1.
be over too quickly.
Yeah, if you wear the ring and watch Glorfindel, he appears like a Super Saiyan in his heavenly form, I think.
I am now never going to be able to picture Glorfindel without seeing Goku now. So thank you.
That's good. That's all right. We're your reading through this time has really been messing with your identity of Glorfindel. Then you've got like the sort of the leprechaun name and also the Super Saiyan hair going now. It's gonna be good.
Yep. Which I've always kind of pictured him. I've always maintained Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth was based off Glorfindel. So now we've just switched from one anime character hair to another anime character hair. So it's
nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that they go on, they have some conversations, they tell him like, hey, take a rest for a while, right? And they kind of get left to just sort of hang out.
And
Is that-
Boromir gets triggered very hard.
Yeah, he does not. He doesn't like. Do you guys think he doesn't like elves, or does he specifically have a thing against the Lady of Lothlórien? Because he talks about, people go into Lothlórien and they no one comes out unscathed, and he seems very untrusting of Galadriel. And
I
Maybe
think
he
it's
has a
the
thing with eye
region that
contact.
bothers him. Yeah. I think it's the region that bothers him, just because of nothing comes out. And as Aragorn corrects him, it's better that you say unchanged rather than unscathed. But because it is such a realm that is so unknown, even to like Legolas, it really kind of lends credence to the concern of, wow, what's going on here. And so while Galadriel is incredibly nice and welcoming, the overall feel of the area, because of Boromir, as a reader, you kind of are left in a realm of, okay, well, is this place fully trustworthy, or is it something that's we can go in and not have cares and worries about? And until they talk with Galadriel, you're kind of up in the air with it.
Yeah, plus he's had Denethor talking to him about the elves all his life and basically propagandizing Boromir against the elves. Like, they don't do anything, they don't help us, and all
Yep.
that.
Boromir
I do think-
has an axe to grind, and it's a fairly legitimate one.
I feel like in this section of the book, we first start to see, I think, the Denethor that was presented in the movies, in some of Boromir's kind of conversation about Minas Tirith and things like that. And obviously, we finally get Boromir, who sort of fully changes, but we'll get to that when we get to it. What did you guys actually think of the mirror itself?
I can
It's like a
go
discount
first.
Palantir.
I noted this in the previous one with the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, where really it was Ian McKellen's performance that kind of adds to when you read it, now that you've seen it in a visual and auditory medium. I get the same sense with this speech from Galadriel, because a lot of this is lifted straight word for word from the book into the film. But when you're first reading this, when you're a kid and you're reading this fairly quickly, I completely missed most of the significance of her giving this speech, the Dark Lord and the Dark Queen. And yeah, if someone's not right up in front of you, kind of changing dark and getting menacing and weird power kind of swirling around, you can read through this too quickly and have it completely lost on you, especially in a very dense work with a whole bunch of other cool events happening around it. But reading this now informed by the films, I'd say again, this is another part of the book where my enjoyment has been enhanced by the films.
You will love me and despair. Like, who says that?
Yeah, yeah.
That is dark.
Yeah, I mean, so that line, obviously, but the beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night, dreadful as the storm and the lightning, like how she describes it. And then you're right, Dane, I think the visualization of her like basically glowing, and yet the light being, it's not sunlight, it's like a dark light, which is, I mean, I agree with you. I think they nailed how to do that
basically
scene, and she did a great
Galadriel
performance.
subverted. Like, if George
Yeah.
R.R. Martin would write Galadriel, he would write that.
Yeah. Man, yep, and you're right. Another section where the dialogue and the lines were basically straight up, word for word, preserving the context as well, right? Like this whole scene with Frodo and Galadriel and the mirror. I mean, almost kind of direct ported into the movie, right?
Yeah.
Sam,
But I'll be the first to.
Yep.
And I do think the movie dramatized this a bit because she was fairly calm while delivering the majority of it. She wasn't building up. I think it was only at the end when she kind of hulks out in the book. But from a adaptation perspective, yeah, I gotta give it to them. They crushed this scene.
And I have to be the first to admit that when I first saw the film and the whole Galadriel kind of shape-shifting, turning animated or whatnot, I was sitting back and be like, I don't remember this from the book at all. And I had to go back and kind of read it and be like, oh, okay. Well, that's an interpretation of that. But to Alex's point, there's very little in terms of adverbs around there of how she's saying it. So
Yeah.
it is very, very much a directorial interpretation of how this dialogue got delivered. Because she could have been uttering this all with total calm, but that said, I like the way that the film does it, and that's now my headcanon when I'm reading it. So good work.
Yeah, I
Peter
think
Jackson.
the point that Alex was making was that so she says all of the dialogue, and then it gives the description that she lifted up her hands. The ring that she wore stood out. Now she stood before Frodo, seeming now tall beyond measurement and beautiful beyond enduring, terrible and worshipful. And then she let her hand fall, and the light faded, and suddenly she laughed again. So it was described after the dialogue, which could indicate that it wasn't done during the delivery, right? But I think, the way that they did it was really strongly done. Talking about something else, and I guess we're going farewell to Lorien here since it's almost the last page there. We're getting towards it, and it's something we've talked about before, the Eye of Sauron. We're going to see it again pretty strongly, to the extent that you want to say that we see it. I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with the much circulated thing that the Eye of Sauron, as it is in the movies, doesn't exist in the books. That it's a Peter Jackson creation. I know that's a thing that for us, the White Cloaks, right? That's something that gets called up when we talk about adaptations. They're adaptations are totally different. The Eye of Sauron was this huge thing in the movie, and it didn't even exist in the books. The more that I went through reading this, the more I kind of find myself disagreeing with that I think the Eye of Sauron really was in the books.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that I'm just being colored by having seen Peter Jackson's interpretation of it?
What's on the goddamn cover of the goddamn book? The eye is there. Maybe what people are griping about with the film is that the eye is not an actual eyeball at the top of Barad-dûr in Mordor, shining his light around like a frickin' lighthouse, that much. But things like feeling the eye's presence in a scene like the Mirror of Galadriel, that I definitely get that sense, right? And
when Frodo
maybe it
sits-
manifests in a bit of a different way here, right? Because they also talk about Nenya, which is Galadriel's ring, that Frodo notices, but Sam does not, which is kind of interesting too.
Yep.
And when Frodo sits on Amon Hen, the throne at Amon Hen, he can actually see the eye. Yeah, when Sauron's attention gets to him, I think.
And he saw it kind of positioned over, the Dark Fortress, right? It describes the fortress and then describes the eye. We'll get to it when we're, I guess, one chapter away from that, maybe. Anything you guys think we missed about the Mirror of Galadriel?
You're gonna have.
So,
Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay. So she says, I passed the test. I will diminish and go into the West and remain Galadriel. That is some shitloads deep lore type stuff going on right there. Especially when you read the Silmarillion, because you realize she can't go back to the West unless she refuses the ring. And that's and this whole thing gives her actually some peace in the world, because now she can go home after participating in the kinslaying. She realizes she has forgiveness.
You're right on about 50% of that.
On 50%? Okay.
She didn't participate in the kinslaying. Her sin, if you will, was basically at the end of the War of Wrath, the Valar said, okay, if you all say you're sorry, you can come back to the West. And she basically said, what the fuck are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong. Morgoth lost his shit and attacked us. You know, we were right to defend them. So I'm not going to apologize to y'all. Fuck off. And for this, she was basically banished for her pride. So she needed to do something that was would basically be showing that she's grown, because the old Galadriel would have taken the ring because of her pride. She would have thought she was sort of the one that was meant for it and destined for it, and would have laid waste to Sauron and the world, and we would have had a Dark Queen. But because she's grown in all of her time in Middle Earth and sort of has had that character development, she was able to turn it down, which was sort of a sign of her humility. And when she passed the test, it was sort of, she felt sort of the cosmic shift of sort of her banishment being lifted, is my understanding of that. But sure. I will also, because I'm 99% sure she didn't participate in the kinslaying.
No, I think you're right. It was one of those things where there was an acquiescence to the kinslaying that I think I was probably more kind of thinking that she was in line with.
Yeah, I think she learned the lesson that Fëanor was supposed to learn. Like, you don't leave everything and go after your own ego satiating journey. You just be humble, come back home. I think that's the...
All right, well, what I wanted to note before we moved on is a fun little passage. The finest rockets ever seen, they burst in stars of blue and green, or after thunder, golden showers came falling like a rain of flowers. A great little kind of combo Sam and Frodo poem to honor Gandalf. I think this is the touching kind of middle part of this chapter, and it's necessary. Yeah. And let's bear in mind too, I think for the reader, the significance, like, because we all know what happens middle of the Two Towers, and you get Gandalf the White and whatnot. But Frodo and Sam, I mean, they don't get the good news until after they've gone through hell and back. So I think this is important for them as well, and it's nice that they dwell on it and they can give that tribute to him. So anyway, didn't want to pass over that one poem, and I thought as well this is the 4 lines of the poem that they actually include in the film, and I thought that was also very, very well done, because nothing's better than when a character's like trying out poetry and then they say afterwards like, oh, that wasn't very good. So
that's me every time I try.
Frodo lays down some tracks here, and Sam is like, oh yeah, but you forgot about his fireworks, so try this.
Try these mad rhymes, and it's like a fucking Hobbit rap battle, man.
Exactly.
Oh, that is pretty good. I don't know, my favorite Sam thing in this chapter was just the fact that Frodo is kind of like unsure about the whole mirror thing, and Sam is like, yeah, whatever, man, like, I'll elven magic, let's do this. I'm consistently impressed by how the bravery of Sam Sam is, potentially the least of the company, and yet very, even among the hobbits, right? So he's the one that's gone the least far from his home at the start of the adventure.
That makes sense to me in a certain kind of way. That Sam also represents bravery, but also naivete, right? And the thing to remember about Sam too is he probably gets the feeling like Mr. Frodo's going to look out for me. So as long as we're together, like I'll look out for him, he'll look out for me. What is this elven magic going to do to me? Nothing, because I got Frodo backing me up, right?
That's a good point. His bravery does come from his loyalty and his relationship with Frodo. I'd buy that. One more reason to like it. It's literally the power of friendship. Okay. So they go farewell to Lorien and they get some sweet gifts. Are we there? Dan, you got some. You've been wanting to talk about these gifts the whole time, right?
It's so putting myself in the context. I don't think I've said this before, but I actually didn't read Fellowship first. My shitty middle school library didn't have a copy of it. I read Two Towers first, and then I got the whole Lord of the Rings for Christmas. But I kind of came at it a little. So I knew where the story was going the first time I read through this, but also at the same time, I think I was like 10 or 11 years old. That classic Games Workshop tabletop game, Hero Quest or Heroes Quest, that was all the rage. And so you play like a character, like a barbarian or an elf, but you like the magic items, just like the subtle stuff that it does. That's what really sucks a little boy into this world and what they want. I want a sword that glows when goblins are near. I want to have an impervious kind of magical mithril shirt. And then other really cool things like the cloaks. You don't think about it, but it comes up kind of over and over again that these cloaks that they get here in Lothlórien are like the ultimate camouflage cloaks. And still, one of my favorite parts of the film is when Frodo casts the cloak over him and Sam, and it looks like a boulder. And you're just like, I know they're going to reveal, but I freeze framed that scene kind of over and over to kind of look at it, and it's like, oh, I just love it. But when you're reading through it, and it's just like, all right, now my party, they've had their rest, but now they're going to get all their power ups. So what's all the cool swag that they're going to get from this magical kingdom?
We are at level 5 now, boys.
Exactly, right?
You just get Link opening the chest. Da-na-na-na.
Yeah. You get your power up, you get your XP points, you pick your new abilities and whatnot, and also here's some magic items. And that's always the best thing. Because the other thing, like, Frodo's got the most powerful magic item already, but he can't fucking use it, right? He's got to get other stuff. But anyways, stoked. Let's get into this chapter for sure.
Yeah.
Farewell to Lorien. Because there's also some really good Gimli shit in here, too.
So, yes, a fair amount. So, Farewell to Lorien is a very short chapter compared to the others that we read in this section. So, again, using my version here, so it's 383 to 395. So it's only a couple pages more than 10, right? And that is well shorter than the previous couple ones. It's not a whole lot of wasted words, and they're setting themselves out. Boromir continues to be kind of a freaking stick in the mud. He's just like, yeah, I'm going back to Gondor. Screw you, dudes. Is kind of the vibe you get from him. Where like everybody else, I feel like you can start to see that they're all like, we're kind of in this for the long haul. But Boromir continues to kind of do his thing, right?
Yep.
Another
And
Galadriel.
I think we
people
also
say
need
he's
to
the most human of all of them. And
Yep.
I think that's
Boromir?
Yeah,
Or Galadriel? Yeah.
because he doesn't trust anyone on face value. When he needs to carry the hobbits, he does, but he isn't overly enthusiastic about it.
But all right, so here's a question for you guys. So they lost Gandalf, They don't necessarily know where the quest is going to go from here. I think they're in agreement, like the ring needs to go to Mordor and Mount Doom, but it's all about how. The film does a good job of setting Frodo and Sam to the Black Gates, and then obviously that becomes, you can't go in there, and therefore you go the Stairs of Cirith Ungol. But if the Fellowship's all together, and you've got the Council of Galadriel and Celeborn here too, why don't they assess and plot out what's the next move? And what would it be at this point, right? Presuming you're going as a party of now 8, would they even know about the Stairs of Cirith Ungol? I think Faramir knows about it, right? Although I might be conflating film and book here again.
I believe Aragorn mentions it. I think he refers to it as the Northern Steps.
Okay.
And don't the elves basically said that you should get out of here as quickly as you can because Sauron's attention will be here the longer the ring is here. So I think they want to just get rid of them, give them some power-ups on the way.
But if Boromir's plan is, let's go to Minas Tirith, let's raise a force of 10,000 and try and break into Mordor, I know why it's a bad plan. So you don't want to take the ring to a city of men. They're just going to take the ring and game over. But I don't know. There seems to be a lack of discussion at that point, and rather it kind of turns into when they get to Amon-Hen and they kind of let Frodo mull it over for an hour what he wants to do. I don't know.
I just took this as like a mini version of sort of the Council of Elrond where they did the same kind of thing. Like, you know, in this case it's Celeborn, but you know, earlier it was Elrond kind of going through the like, well, here are the options in front of you guys. I'm not really going to tell you guys what you need to do, but I'll give you some boats. And like
it's elves being elves, they're going to say both yes and no. So maybe that's in keeping with what's already been established, right?
Yeah,
you don't go to, like,
disregard Boromir again. So I think it's basically for Boromir's tension and resentment building up at this point.
Gosh, both of those are two really good points. The harkening back to the elf will tell you yes and no, I think is a good insight, and the fact that Boromir's plan has been turned down every time he brings it up. He's basically just like, yeah, shut up, we're doing something else.
And plus he doesn't even realize that Strider or Aragorn is so much older than him. And I don't think he realizes that Aragorn is so much mature and more world-weary. He just sees him as a normal ranger from the north.
That's an interesting question. What do you guys think? Chat, what do you guys think? Do you think that Aragorn's appearance as not being much older than sort of, you know, kind of young, middle-aged, right? Do we think that is a factor for Boromir's calculation or his perception?
Let's also keep in mind here, I think that there are passages, particularly around what Boromir's saying, that he says in the book in Farewell to Lorien, that got moved to the Council of Elrond in the film, right? So this is where he's saying, like, you need to raise a force, and it's folly to kind of go in, and he's really saying, you know, it would be folly to throw lives away. I mean, it's a choice between defending a strong place and walking openly into the arms of death. At least that's how I see it. He's not speaking nonsense. At least not
is that that's from Farewell to Lorien?
Yeah,
I thought that was right at the very end, near Rauros.
He might have said it several times, but he does say it again here in Farewell to Lorien.
Okay.
Well, it's really kind of unfortunate because Boromir is. I don't mean to say that Boromir is fucking right, but their plan of, all right, so we're going to get to Mordor. Question mark? Hobbit will throw ring into volcano. And
basically want to
still working
on
Underpants
Gnomes. Underpants Gnomes. It's like step 1, collect underpants. Step 2, question mark, we're working on it. Stage 3, profit.
Yeah. And to Boromir's point is, guys, you've forgotten the fundamental problem here that step 2 is literally fucking impossible. So, maybe we should think about some other shit. Hey, what if in the meantime, as we're figuring this out, you helped my people not get exterminated by Sauron? That would be a fucking fantastic use of everybody's resources here. And everybody's going, shut up, Boromir, you don't know what you're talking about. Which Boromir's response is, well, motherfucker, neither do you. So, it is... I can totally get where Boromir is coming from here, because he is literally... He's right. And I mean, the other thing to think about it is, man, talk about fucking pressure. Everybody else's kingdoms are going to be fine. At least, in the next 20 to 30 years. Boromir's kingdom is fucked.
Yeah, it's basically Belgium.
Yeah. Oh, I would say France, but...
whenever war happens, they get fucked.
But
France invades Germany, Belgium's fucked. Germany invades France, Belgium's fucked.
Yeah, big difference between France and Gondor is that France surrenders.
Yeah, but it's really tough, and I totally get it. Plus, he doesn't have any help. I mean, his father is, very slowly drifting into despair and madness. So, I mean, it's basically all on him, and every time he tries to point out his very valid points, some elf motherfucker says, shut up. Like, we don't, your opinion isn't worth anything. I get why the boy is pissed.
And there is an influence of the ring that's been going on Boromir.
But
increasing as they go along.
Here's an interesting food for thought or philosophical question. Do you think Boromir is more susceptible to the temptation of the ring precisely because he is in dire straits?
Yes. Mm-hmm. He's more susceptible to it because, first of all, he's a human man, so he doesn't have the sort of natural protection of the other races or the Númenórean blood that Aragorn has. And in addition, and this is kind of why hobbits are good for this kind of thing, is because, what is Sam's greatest ambition? To
best
be
fucking garden in Hobbiton.
Right? So, I mean, that isn't exactly great for spinning someone to sort of lose their shit, whereas, Boromir is desperate, trying to raise this army, and is trying to grasp at whatever power he can. That's far more easy to manipulate than Sam wanting the best goddamn petunias in, the fucking Westlands.
So, anyway, honestly, this is kind of why we're having this book club and talking about it, but I think that enhances Boromir as a tragic character, for sure. Right?
100%.
When and again, like when you're 10 years old and reading this for the first time, like there a lot of this nuance kind of gets lost on you because you're doing it because
you're just sitting there thinking Boromir's a dick.
Boromir's a total dick. I get why you didn't get the coolest present in Lothlórien, but holy shit, that lembas bread, that stuff sounds awesome. I want to try some. Like, there are things that you fixate on as a little kid, but when you get back, you're reading this more as an adult and chatting it over. Yeah, I think what Alex is saying here, and looking kind of as a character study of Boromir, he's a tragic figure. He's got more of the weight of the world on his shoulders than arguably even Aragorn. Aragorn's able to turn down the ring, right? Why is that? Vis-a-vis Boromir.
Plus, Aragorn hasn't acknowledged that he should be the king. He still thinks he should be Strider still, and not come into his true role.
Or he certainly hasn't stepped up. I mean, at best, he's on his way to step up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Boromir has stepped up. Boromir's got all that weight on his shoulders, and that's kind of what made him target number one for the ring within the party, and it leads to his death. Like, Shakespearean tragic character. Fantastic. But 10-year-old's not going to pick up on that.
Yep.
At least I did. I was precocious, but I wasn't that precocious.
Have we talked about the another great comedy moment in this chapter, where they're all like, "Damn, these are some dope ass cloaks," and the elves are like, no, they're not fucking magic. They're just cloaks. Like we
Are these magic cloaks? And they're like, they're just garments. Like,
Like, what are you talking? What's magic?
yeah,
Are
like,
these magic cloaks? Asked Pippin, looking at them with wonder. I don't know what you mean by that, answered the leader of the elves. They are fair garments, and the web is good, for it was made in this land. They are elvish robes, certainly, if that is what you mean. Leaf and branch, yada, 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 yada. Yeah, it just sounds like, dude, we wear that all the time.
Yeah. Well, and another comedy bit too. It was actually given to Pippin in the movies, but the lembas bread was actually Gimli wolfing down a whole wafer of it, and they're like, "No more, no more! You've eaten enough for a long day's march."
This was actually, I think, this was a slight enhancement from the narrative, because if you give it to the hobbits, who you've already established like to have a lot of meals, and it's like Legolas is like one bite could fill the belly of a grown man. How many of you had? 2 already, and it's just like 4 or whatever it was. It was great.
Yep, 4. Then he goes.
yeah.
So, do we think Gimli is a simp? Do we not? What's the opinion on that?
So if we're getting into that, what I do have to say is I absolutely love Gimli laying down the hot poetry to Galadriel with Galadriel's husband standing right beside him. He's just like, I don't give a shit, dude. I'm going to mac on this chick. I know you're right there. You can see me. You ain't stopping me. Fucking Chad Gimli. Not a simp at all, man.
shooting a shot.
That is true.
That
Three
element
foot
there,
six
basically,
Gimli.
having Celeborn in the room, that is not a simp move whatsoever.
All right. Well, Dane, I feel like you were really big on the gifts here. Do you want to kind of lay them out for us, and we can talk about what people get and what we kind of think what we think of their gifts.
Yeah. So where does that start? So they get all the cloaks.
Yep, they get all the cloaks in the lambus spread.
Okay.
Right. Then the next they finish their meal. They go down with Haldir.
Oh, Sam gets some rope. That's awesome, because that's already been established. He wanted some elvish rope, or just any rope, before they left Rivendell and forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then is it after they do the big long poem, or is it before?
After.
So they got the boats, and then it goes into
The meal.
the last meeting with Celeborn in the little swan ship. So there's the poem, and then after the meal that they have with them in the swan ship,
The cup of farewell.
that's when they get the actual farewell and the rest of the gifts.
So Aragorn gets a scabbard for it's not called Narsil anymore, but his sword, right? The fuck, what do they call it? Not a Lendil. I forget what they call the sword now.
Good grief.
Was it Flame of the West?
Anduril.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anduril, yes.
Good pull, Rick.
So the blade that is drawn from the sheaths shall not be stained or broken, even in defeat. So, not really explained the magic there, but is it basically like, yeah, and with this, like, it's not going to get broken again like Narsil was? Anyways,
Yeah, I guess that could be it. It's like if only your great granddad had been like a little bit nicer to me the last time that I met him, because like I was around, it was like 1,000 years ago. If he hadn't been such a dick, I would have given him a scabbard like this. None of this.
We
would
hadn't
happen.
perfected this technology at the time, but with what happened with Narsil, we put all of our top men on it, and we came up with this scabbard.
Top men.
Top men. But I don't know. I think, what do you give to the ranger from the north who has everything, including like the reforged sword of his grandparents? Well, he needs to get a nice sheath for it. So
Her granddaughter?
oh, that too. Yeah.
Well, it's not the only thing. I guess he's getting 3. He gets the scabbard. He gets the granddaughter. So there's a joke there that I'm not going to make, and and I think there's the green elf stone.
So Boromir gets a belt of gold, and Merry and Pippin get silver belts. To Legolas gave a bow such as the Galadriel used, longer and stouter than the Mirkwood bows, strung with a string of fine elf hair, and a quiver of arrows. So all seem like prudent gifts. Sam gets something awesome. So he gets, for his ambition of having the greatest garden in all of the Shire. Like, just in case there was the risk that Sam really wanted the ring in order to get those petunias, I think Galadriel here kind of superseded, one-upped, and just gave him some earth from Lothlórien.
She gave him some Monsanto seeds.
Oh, God. Don't even go there.
Can we talk about how funny, just silly but wholesome it is that she's like, here's a little box. It has a G for Galadriel, but also for garden. Like, what?
Or Gamgee, for crying out loud.
She stopped G.
Also, like, everybody else gets literal, like, bands of, like, precious metals. And she's just like, Sam, I have a box of dirt for you. And he takes that box and is the happiest motherfucker in the entire group. Oh, but you got gold? A gold belt? Wow, what a fucking loser. Sorry you got gypped, dude.
That's a good point.
Right.
That is a good point.
Should we sit back and maybe analyze a little bit about the significance of this as a gift, right? Because this more than anything else that's bequeathed to the party doesn't seem like it has any utility on the quest coming up, right? So, Aragorn gets a sheath for his sword that's going to defend it. Boromir gets decked out with some nice gold belt and whatnot. Even what Frodo gets later, the elixir that shines the light, like it's used in the quest.
Yeah.
But Sam gets something for after. Now, is that what Sam represents, right? Because Sam is also the character that looks ahead. And I think in the films, it's, and since we haven't read there yet, I don't know if this line was lifted. But Sam is saving provisions for the journey home, right?
Yeah.
He's thinking, yeah, we're going to go do this, but we still need to get back. That's always been in his calculus. And I think Frodo, by that point in time, is being like, this is a one-way fucking trip. And here in Lothlórien, Sam's the only one that gets something that's for when after the story is done. This isn't going to help you now, but what's really important is that you are the guy who's looking once this is all over. And here is your coming reward for when that happens. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Perfectly stated.
Something to help endure.
It could have been a foretelling by
it is a
Galadriel.
beautiful alliteration to that.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
I think you guys said it all pretty much.
And now the best part of this, like, yeah, a lot of the gifts are cool, but now we've got Gimli, who's the gruff dwarf, who is almost like not allowed in Lothlórien because, past friction and whatnot. He's the anti-elf, right? He's way too hairy, way too uncouth, and he is putting Celeborn to shame, just macking on Galadriel in front of everybody like a fucking pimp Chad.
4'6", massive unkempt beard, just rolled up on the 6'1" Italian model at the club and just started spitting game. Absolutely
There's nothing,
beautiful.
Lady Galadriel. Nothing unless it might be.
Gimli is top G now.
Unless it is permitted to ask, nay, to name a single strand of your hair, which surpasses the gold of the earth and the stars surpass the gems of the mine. I do not ask for such a gift, but you commanded me to name my desire. Fuck yeah. Remember, Celeborn is standing right beside it. And I think Tripp was mentioning in an earlier comment too, like, there's actually a lore significance.
It's a dwarvish panty dropper.
Well,
I just want to add that the actual line here, so it's not just Celeborn standing next to her. So it says, the elves stirred and murmured with astonishment, and Celeborn gazed at the dwarf in wonder, which could be interpreted one of two ways. He could be like, the audacity on this little, right? Like, he could be blown away by just like you said, like, Gimli comes in
I
and just
let you into my fucking
up,
kingdom, you piece of shit.
He just straight up is like, yep, behind the bushes, right there, right
this
now.
Provokes
you,
the dwarf
me.
elf hyperwar for the next fucking age.
Either that or he was baffled that a dwarf was like, wow, that is shockingly literate for a dwarf. Like, I didn't know you people were capable of such things. Casual racism.
Yeah, I guess those are the two most likely interpretations.
All right. And then if
Yeah,
this is a cunnilingus
perfect.
joke, well played, Tolkien. I don't think it was. It is said that the skill of the dwarves is in their hands rather than in their tongues. Yet that is not so true of Gimli, for none have ever made to me a request so bold and yet so courteous. And how shall I refuse, since I commanded him to speak? But tell me, what would you do with such a gift? And let's bring it back, because I think it was kind of mentioned, and Matt from our chat,
It's the best
lore
part.
expert extraordinaire, saying this actually has a parallel that's kind of run through the Silmarillion, right? Because someone wanted, was it Fëanor or Fëanor wanted one of Galadriel's hairs to, was it to set in the Silmaril, or did he capture the light of the trees because he couldn't get her hair?
So her hair radiates with the light of the Silmarils. So Fëanor was kind of he was sort of an artist, and he was just, at least Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here. It was basically he wanted it to almost study it and see if he could kind of make, better metals that glow brighter. And Galadriel always thought that he was kind of a fuckhead. So she always told him
he wanted
no.
to figure out the mysteries of alloy.
Yes.
No
yeah.
pips. Bad pips.
No one had
pips.
ever before thought of alloy.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Yeah, Matt's got it in the chat. Yeah, he wanted 3 hairs, 1 for each Silmaril, and Fëanor had a thing for Galadriel. And as dorky as that sounds, Fëanor was the OG badass elf. Like, he was the baddest motherfucker on 2 legs. He was sort of the head of the elves in Valinor. So what Fëanor requested, Fëanor got. So Galadriel being a powerful telepath, read him, saw that he was kind of a prideful dickhead, and said no. So it's sort of remarkable to see, Galadriel said no to Fëanor, maybe the most mythical of all mythical elves in Valinor at the time, but, 4'0" Gimli with his unkempt beard asked for 1 hair, and instead of denying him like she did Fëanor, she gave him 3.
It's also,
Tolkien study this language, because if you learn how to woo chicks like Gimli is able to do here in this book, like, you'll go far, young man. Right?
I was going to say, it's also the story about the hair is, Tolkien just giving good advice that old men sniffing around the hair of young women should be sort of viewed with suspicion.
like how Montana sniffs Idaho?
Yes, exactly.
Go look at a map
Exactly
of
like
your
that.
fucking country. You're never going to unsee it from now on.
Oh,
That
I'll
is-
be honest,
that
I
is
thought you were
pretty
making a Joe Biden joke there.
Oh, I am making a joke.
Okay.
on a joke.
What? Who would have done that?
Go look at the border of Montana and Idaho and be like, "What the fuck that?" Yeah.
And I think
It is a strange looking border. It does kind of look like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fëanor is only surpassed by Fingolfin in terms of badassness, right? Like going toe to toe with the Balrog when the Balrog is at the most powerful. Like fighting
Fëanor-
lasted for a few months, I think.
Fëanor died to Gothmog, who was the king of the Balrogs.
Hmm.
So it was like Super Saiyan 2 elf fought Super Saiyan Balrog, and Super Saiyan Balrog beat him. But if I remember correctly, a troop of elves came in later and killed the wounded Gothmog. So it was basically a 1-for-1 trade. Sauron's second most powerful.
Morgoth's, you know, kind of creature.
Morgoth's
right?
number 2 or 3 guy. I'm sorry. And so, Matt, as always, you are such a wonderful resource. Thank you for watching and contributing.
Yeah, it means spirit of fire, I think. Feanor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was solo fighting a horde of Balrogs and was doing all right. So yeah, Feanor was a fucking monster.
Well, she gives him another gift, right? Getting back on the topic. She like, what do you guys think that this is actually a foretelling, or like a you know, like a blessing that she puts on him, or is this just like a nice thing that she's saying about him? The part where she says that you know, I say to you, Gimli, son of Gloin, that your hands shall flow with gold, and yet over you gold shall have no dominion, which I feel like is, you know, a pretty good blessing for a dwarf, given their I don't know, affinity, desire for gold, right?
Yeah, basically, don't become Bezos.
I'd be saying don't become Thorin, because that's the other thing too. So the tragedy of Thorin in The Hobbit was also like he went to kind of reclaim his lost treasure, but at the end of the day, it's just like Fight Club. The things you own end up owning you, and that's kind of what gets freed here. So it's basically a good portent for Gimli, but he's not going to end up being corrupted by it, I guess. So.
And he gets to go to the Undying Lands.
Yeah, and plot armor for the rest of the story, so you know Gimli's going to be okay, right? So that helped. That made Helm's Deep a little bit of a lighter read when I first read that too. Like, there's no way he's dying. He's going to kill like 42 of these fucking things.
43. That one was already dead.
We'll get there.
It was moving. Sorry, that's the movie. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
All right, so they get their gifts. They set out on the Great River, right? Which I have to say, among of chapters that are adapted to the film, I think the Great River is basically a perfect adaptation to the movie. Like the thing that I can nitpick and say that they didn't get was that the Pillars of the Kings, right? The Pillars of the Kings had these giant kings with their a hand outstretched as if in like a warding sort of sign, right? And they were holding axes. And in the movie they have swords. That's the difference. It's like
Isildur and Anarion, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like I was reading through one of the forums from way back in the day, some of the complaints about that, you know, hardcore Tolkien fans had about this adaptation, and the swords rather than axes is one of the things that was mentioned, and that made me laugh so hard. Like, wow, how good were things back in the day? That was what you were complaining about.
Yeah.
I have to issue a correction here for you. One of them, the elder of the two Argonath, has a
Doesn't
sword.
have a sword at all.
No, he does. The younger one has got his other hand out to the side, and that's actually holding an axe. So one of the two is holding in the film. One of the two Argonath has an axe. The other one has a sword.
Okay, I don't think that I had noticed that the other one had an axe. I thought that one had a sword, and I thought the other one wasn't holding anything. That his arm was stretched out to the side with nothing.
It is out to the side, but right in the hand there's a little bit of an axe blade.
So even I would say, let's assume that that's correct, right? That just highlights even more how silly the complaints are, right? That it's like, yep, this dude has a sword, he's supposed to have an axe, and it's like it's a giant statue with like the details of the fact that you watch that. There's the spot where they quarried the stone out of the side of the sort of like river canyon to build these things, and you're like, yep, you actually thought to put the like cut quarried area where they built this thing exactly like it would be in a real world, because you have these big rock cliffs. You're not going to haul stone from somewhere else. You'd cut it there, right?
Yep.
And I mean, we see them going down the river. We see them, traveling kind of, with the boats sort of tied together, going through the rapids. We see, at least in the extended edition, although I think this is in the theatrical as well, Gollum following them as like a log, right? I don't know.
All they had to go off of is this in the book. Like,
here, let's.
like
Yep. Nice. I like the pictures in here. I need to upgrade my version. I got
I got
a fun old paperback, but the art in the version you guys have is pretty phenomenal. I might have to go and pick up a new one.
We should note, I think, Vic, we got the same art in our editions, but I think these are Tolkien's own sketches.
yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, you
we're
guys
on to the
think I'm
Great
wrong?
River.
Like, is there anything with the Great River that isn't just the kind of general, like, hey, we're going along the river, we're seeing some stuff between the different characters. I think it's all there in the movie, so I feel like there's almost nothing really to kind of dig into.
And also, they reference that there used to be a kingdom here. And do we know what the kingdom's name is?
That was Isildur's brother's kingdom, I believe.
Wasn't Anarion the king for the north?
Yeah, so Elendil came over, and Elendil died. Isildur had Gondor, and Isildur's brother founded the Northern Kingdom. And I am blanking on all of these names, Jesus. But that was my understanding.
No, Jesus wasn't in this.
You're correct. It's not it's not the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's Chronicles of Narnia.
That's C.S. Lewis.
So I think that's why these old Númenórean kings are here, is because
Arnor, by the way, it's Arnor.
Arnor, that's it. Yep. So that's one of the reasons that the Númenórean kings are here, is that they're remnants of a time when the blood of Númenor was still strong in men, such that they were able to craft these things, and it's sort of this incredible beauty. Thank you, Matt.
You contrast that with Orthanc. Orthanc was also built by men. So.
Yeah, but it's sort of a testament to the strength of how men were back in Númenor. That, how did you make a sign that says "Turn back, waterfall ahead"? And instead of making a sign that says "Turn back, waterfall ahead," their approach was 2 500-foot statues with their arm out saying "Stop." Like, that's what men were back in the day. That's the sort of thing that men did. And it's sort of an excellent example of sort of the fall of this civilization to what it means. And I think it's actually, not to get modern about it, but if you want to talk about, sort of the decline of a civilization being when they sort of stop making brilliant art and brilliant architecture. I'm not saying that's happening in America right now, but I'll let y'all ruminate on that thought.
Well, let's just I don't know. I'm a bit of a history buff, so I'm just wondering, what do you think? Like, the Roman influence on European history is also, like, that has a very, very long shadow. So I'm wondering too if there's an element of that, right? That because for a very long time in Europe, like, you could always look back to the ancient Roman monuments that were lying around the entire continent, and maybe
the aqueducts, the roads, yeah.
Yep, and I think incredibly strong argument to be made, despite the man's words, that Numenor was heavily influenced by the Romans, in particular Roman legends of Atlantis. Okay, there, I said it. The Tolkien people may shriek at me for that, but
no, the Roman people are going to shriek at you for that because that's not a Roman legend. That predates even it's mentioned in Plato's Republic, or Plato mentions it for sure.
Fourth-hand account by Plato of someone who was in Egypt whose uncle knew a story from a long time ago.
Yeah,
his father's, mother's, brother's, cousin's former roommate.
To Roman. Which also, I gotta say, we give so much credit to some of these older authors, and then you read a direct translation, and you're like, wow, you really did just drop So I was at the Subway shop one day, and I heard this guy mention this incredible story. Here it is.
That's what Herodotus is, dude. All he's doing is basically going around the whole ancient world giving anecdotes of shit, and that's why you get some really cool, insightful shit. Archaeology on the Scythians actually backs up what he writes about them, but he's got some whack shit too in describing people south of the Sahara. Yeah, you got to take him with a grain of salt. Anyways,
my favorite is Plutarch. It's more realistic what he has to say.
I couldn't get away with it. Plutarch was doing biography, right? Or at least his most famous work. Yeah. Can't fuck that up. All right.
All right. Well, clearly we don't have a whole lot to say about.
No, we do, dude.
Great River because.
No. Midway through this, what actually happens? Because this is something that I missed on. Well, it doesn't happen in the film, but there's a goddamn Nazgul that shows up and it's flying some fucking dragon, man.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I was honestly thinking that was the start of the next chapter. So you're right. They did cut that part out. So good reminder that it wasn't a straight up port. And yeah, Legolas
soon it
works
appeared
that
as
bow.
a great winged creature, blacker than the pits in the night. Fierce voices rose up to greet it from across the water. Frodo felt a sudden chill running through him, and clutching his heart, there was a deadly cold, like the memory of an old wound in his shoulder. He crouched down as if to hide. So I think that's pretty damn clear. This is a Nazgul again. And then, Legolas, with his Lorien bow, saves the day, shoots an arrow, and the creature turns around. And here's one time, because it finally showed up, I can make this point, but you guys all know that meme about Lord of the Rings being like, why didn't they just fly a fucking eagle to Mount Doom and drop the ring in? Like he forgot about it. I think it didn't get played up enough in the film, but if you study it, what you'd basically be saying is the Nazgul were on these basically fell beasts flying around. You couldn't get into Mordor via the air.
I thought that they actually so this scene I think was there's an analog of this scene that happened at the start of the second movie when they're going across the marshes, right? And I do think that the movie still does show you that the sky was being patrolled,
Well, I think that's that is in the passage in the marshes too.
Yeah. But I'm saying we do see the fell beasts, patrolling the skies around Mordor. But I agree with you that this would have been a reinforcement that even this early, they actually are encountering them.
And J.K. Rowling stole the fell beasts idea and put it into Thestrals. They're basically the same thing.
Oh, it's borrowed. It's not stealing.
Along with a grocery list of other, of other things. Unless you happen to think that Aragog and Shelob just happen to pop up independent of one another. This description it's almost so fast. It's like 2 paragraphs. It's like, oh yeah, and then this badass, winged creature swoops down over the river. And then Legolas turns around, draws his bow, looks backwards, doesn't even look at it, releases and takes it out. There's even a comment in here about it's so dark that Frodo can't see Legolas's face, but Legolas is like, "Gotcha, bitch!" Just guns him down right in the middle of the river, and the thing drops. Legolas does not get enough credit for being a badass here because, you know, shooting a moving, flying target in the dark is an incredible shot, and everybody's like, "Yep, Legolas being Legolas, doing Legolas things."
Legolas, what do your elf eyes see?
It's not like balloons in the middle of the night.
The first thing they praise is the bow of Galadriel, and then the hand and eye of Legolas. Fucking Gimli.
Yep.
As he munched on a wafer of lembas. Again, Gimli, put that shit down.
Was he eating more lambus bread then?
Yeah, he was.
Did I missed that?
Yeah.
Damn it.
That's funny. I missed that too.
I just know that they're talking about the Balrog, all that kind of stuff. And, yep, Gimli munching a wafer of lembas. Damn it, Gimli.
Right.
All right, so we're
like eating like a bag of Cheetos. Like, nice shot, buddy. That was a good one. That was nice.
Or if it was in the movie, he'd say that only counts as one.
Like the OG no scope.
Legitimately.
So we're up to the breaking of the fellowship.
I think so.
Can I just say, throughout this chapter and the river and this chapter in general, I love the way that the falls of Rauros are like a character. It always talks about it gives Rauros actions. You know, it does things. It is, you know, it talks about its voice. It talks about it sort of rumbling and roaring and things like that. I just thought that was a very tight way to kind of describe the setting. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who kind of noted that.
But he's consistent with that, though. He's consistent with that, though, because he talks about he uses Gimli to talk about how, at the beginning of what we were discussing earlier, when they get out of Moria, he calls the pass of Caradros less. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it's basically less mean than Moria. So I mean, he does a very good job of personalizing the nature surrounding everybody.
So consistent with his view on nature and how he describes it. I would agree with that. I still just, for me, I don't know. Rauros, the one with Caracas, that one seemed more like superstitious on kind of Gimli's part, right? Like or Caradhas. I have to look at the spelling again, but it seemed like Gimli had this kind of suspicion, superstition about it, whereas Rauros, to me, just, I don't know, it seemed a little different. But I take your point that he consistently does give kind of an agency or an action to nature. I think a lot of lines here lifted kind of directly into the movie, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. I got it. The kingdom was called Parth Galen, a fair place in the summer days of
Yes. Yeah, right there at the beginning of the chapter.
Nice. Time-wise, with maybe somebody in the someone in the chat might be able to tell us, that has to be after the fall of Arnor, right? Do you guys think is Parth Galen, is that after or before Arnor?
I think it's before.
Before. Okay.
Yeah. Because Arnor falls quite late in the third age, if we look at the whole timeline.
Okay.
The northern line almost perishes in Fornost. It's quite a bit north from.
So Kargalen is a part of Arnor, I thought.
I think it was the northernmost border for Gondor. It could be.
No, someone in the chat will
Okay.
tell us what we're missing here on this.
When we start getting into is this neighborhood part of northern Gondor or southern Arnor? That's when we that's when we're getting pedantic about it. But
Yeah.
pedantic in book club is a good thing.
True. Yeah.
But come on, guys, it's the climax of the first part of the story. Right? We got a breaking of the fellowship. They're doing the portage down the falls. They give Frodo some time to mull things over, think about it. But this is Boromir's big scene.
Hey, sorry to kind of go back into being a pedant. So someone in the chat can maybe help us out here, or one of you guys might know. So there's this line where Aragorn uses Frodo's sword to identify if there are orcs nearby. He's like, "Hey, what? Let's see what Sting may show." And Frodo pulls it out, and it's gleaming dully. And so they're like, there are some orcs nearby, but they're not super close. Maybe they're on the other shore. We don't know. Why does Aragorn's sword not?
Because Aragorn's sword had the enchantment for
Yeah, I
never
think,
dulling plus 25 damage against all dark friends.
Didn't we know that Frodo's sword came from Gondolin? Wasn't that discussed?
Yes.
In The Hobbit. So
In The Hobbit,
Where
yeah.
Sting came
Yeah.
from.
But even it's
And
a dagger too.
I don't
It's
think
a Hobbit
Aragorn's sword
short-
is from Gondolin.
No.
So
No,
only
it's not.
those
Yeah,
swords have that property.
the blades of Gondolin glow blue when orcs are about. Whereas, Aragorn's comes from, I think, Eregion originally.
All right, cool. So we have sufficient nerds in the chat in the panel here to be able to solve the problem. I knew that some glowed and some did not. I didn't know that it was like sort of a secret for these smiths versus these other ones. That's
Peps,
sweet.
have you ever seen the South Park episode
Matt
The
has a
Hobbit?
good answer too. Yes. Yeah, it's pretty
Right.
solid.
Kanye West gets up in front of the Pope and he's basically being like, yo, if I was married to a hobbit, then why doesn't she glow blue when orcs are near? And then Pope Francis comes up behind and says, the hobbit does not glow blue, only his sword does.
Yeah.
Get out of here, you fucking motherfucking Pope. Like,
Yeah. I think we've all seen the D&D thing where the orc in the party kills a hobbit and finds a sword that glows. It only glows blue when orcs are nearby, but because he's an orc and he has it, it always glows. So it's like a little lantern for him.
this is neato.
Yeah. So if you ever put it back and or walked away from it, it would stop glowing. But
I will say that is kind of a meme conversation that I've encountered before on whether or not orcs know that elven blades glow when orcs are around. Because how would they test that? Anytime they came to try and observe if it's glowing or not, it would be glowing. So they view it like, it's all these elves walking around with night lights, and the elves are like stupid orcs. I knew you were coming a mile away.
That could also be the reverse, right? It's like, oh, look, the elves are coming. They got their stupid glowing swords out. Fucking idiots. I don't know. Having an illuminated sword is a mixed blessing, you would think.
Yeah, Gondolin was weird.
Also, it's especially a giant fucking waste because elves can see tremendously. Like, it'd be one thing if it was men who can't see in the dark that had swords that glowed, but elves can see super well anyway, so...
Well, I mean, it doesn't glow. It's not a lightsaber, right? Like it just kind of glows. So,
it's like,
or maybe it is a
Gondolin,
lightsaber. Why not?
Like,
Look, don't
the
give
whole
Amazon
kingdom
any
of
ideas.
Gondolin existed to make weird things. Like, nobody needed those things, but they still made it. Like,
Yeah.
they made the rings, they made the glowing swords. Like, who needs that?
I can see
I'm
how if
officially-
you lived for like 10,000 years, you'd make some weird shit. Like, I made a couch that also has a laser gun on it. Why? Because I was bored when I was 3,713 years old. You know how people get when they're
Because
that
it's
age.
there.
Yeah, showing off. It's hey, I'm this talented.
All right, so I feel like we have three major events to kind of talk through here in this last chapter, because like a lot of stuff happens here. We have the decision to let Frodo kind of go off on his own, and then the confrontation with Boromir, right? We have Sam and I guess we'll go sort of in order here. We have Frodo's sitting on the seat of seeing, right? So he sits up there on the high seat and looks around and surveys, sort of the rise of the Might of Mordor and the waning strength of men, right? And then we have Sam and Frodo going together to cross the river.
Plus, I think Gandalf also intervenes. It's the first sign that Gandalf is still alive. When Frodo is sitting on the throne, he hears a voice like, "Stop, you fool."
You don't think that was just him remembering Gandalf's advice to him? Because Gandalf had told him never put it on, right? So
I thought it was
interpreted it as
Gandalf achieving whitehood and just going for it.
Well, we have seen that already in the Mirror of Galadriel, right? Yep. Frodo didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm. He heard himself crying out, "Never, never."
He sees Gandalf, and then one chapter later, he hears a strange disembodied voice that reminds him of Gandalf. Also, Vic, I absolutely love the phrase whitehood. Like, that is tremendous. I'm definitely stealing that in all future conversations.
I think that we would get so canceled if we use that. Vic is allowed to talk about whitehood. The rest of us, we'd be absolutely.
Yeah, we don't want to show our privilege.
Man, I can't wait. For
if the White Cloaks start saying something that has white and hood together in a sentence, we are so effed, guys.
I can't wait till they recast Perrin and we can use that.
Oh man. Nope.
Are we canceled yet?
Probably.
All right.
Do you care?
No.
Nope. I don't know. I mean, I kind of summarized the events. Do you guys think that we missed that there's anything else that needs to be talked about, or do we want to just kind of talk about those three things and then get towards the end here? Because we've been going for 2 hours already. This has been going on. So
yeah, I'll be honest. When I saw the length of this section, because it's like 30% shorter than all the others, I was like, man, we're gonna be done pretty quick here. But I was fucking wrong.
We had to talk about friggin' Chad Gimli shooting his shot at
don't blame this on me, Pips. Don't blame this on me.
That was easily the highlight of the conversation.
But that was not the long drawn out part of the conversation. I'm pretty sure we talked about tree bark at length.
As Tolkien would want. He put a lot of effort into those descriptions.
Neither here nor there.
Sean Bean's performance, like when he turns from very greedy, emotional into like repentant, almost on a dime, like that.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
another element
fantastic.
that is difficult to convey on a page. So again, where the film can enhance your appreciation is when you see this performed, and in that visual medium, I think it better enhances Boromir as a tragic figure because, again, Sean Bean's performance, he's not himself. And then the other thing that's also got to remember, we only get like the Frodo side of this part of the story in Fellowship, and the Boromir side where he comes up and has his rescue moment. That's actually in Two Towers, so we don't actually get to cover that. But I think they made a good decision and combined that obviously in the film. So
agreed completely.
Yeah, it definitely has the film end on the right note, I think, with them setting out after the other two hobbits.
I will say,
get
we can talk about it 2 weeks from now. I have one beef with that.
Yep. I think that Tolkien ended this book the way you would want to end this book, right? So starts out with it's a dangerous thing, stepping off your what is it, threshold, or setting foot out your door, right? Whatever the line there is. And then it basically ends up with them shouldering their packs and walking down the gray hills down to the land of shadow, is where this chapter ends. And I think that's the right arc for this book, right? That as Nate kind of does a great job narrating for us in our intro, this book is about the journey and kind of the road. And so having the hobbits on a journey and then ending in the hobbits still on a journey, and whither then we cannot know, I think is really solid. I agree that it wouldn't have been as impactful and exciting of sort of a cliffhanger moment, I guess, for the movies, but we'll talk about it in the future, like you said.
Yeah, there's some other changes. So, well, in the film, Aragorn runs into Frodo, and in this chapter, Aragorn runs into Boromir, or Boromir comes back, and they get to kind of discuss, and then they go off looking for Frodo, except for Sam.
Yeah.
Kind of all splits off, but I don't know. Film ended on a good kind of action shot. This,
yeah.
Well,
kind of saw it all coming.
Yeah, but how Sam comes to the realization, all of a sudden he's just like, oh, wait a minute.
So good.
Duh. He turns around because it just shows how focused he is in his responsibility over caring for Frodo, and that he just runs right back to the shoreline and doesn't worry about telling anybody else. They're off doing their thing. He doesn't care because his concern is getting back to Frodo. Because he understands now immediately, if I don't do it, I will not see him again. I will not be able to fulfill my duty. And it just, again, it's almost like we see these little bits and pieces of actions of Samwise, the Brave, before he gets titled that at the end of Two Towers, in that chapter. And it just is showing forth how much he is the unsung hero of this book.
Yeah, for sure.
I also like how Aragorn was like, we need to find Frodo. Sam, come with me. And then immediately took off running, and Sam was like a 4-year-old at the mall trying to follow his running dad.
It's worse than that. He says, come with me, Sam. None of us should be alone. And then he's just like, see ya, bye.
Aragorn is a focused individual, okay?
But yeah, Nate, the part that you brought up, I love that line. Whoa, Sam Gamgee, he said aloud, your legs are too short, so use your head. Just
yes.
a great line. Honestly, Sam's realization, like you described it, and also, in inhabiting the mind of Frodo as he thinks through what he has to do, are both really highlights of this chapter for me. And it's unfortunate that that's not a thing that you can do very well in a TV show or a movie or something like that. And so I don't think that we got that aspect of it. But I think that we got enough to know that Frodo was conflicted about the choice. We got enough to understand that he was leaving to put himself and no one else at risk. I think that does come through, and you still get Sam figuring Frodo's plan out, and the scene of him throwing himself into the river after the boat is basically, right there. And the fact that Frodo abandons his plan to come back and save Sam, I think is a good note for Frodo as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, we talked already about the eye and him looking around. I don't really have anything else to say other than that it was a really good, like, reading through that section was so good. Like, in one page, Tolkien tells you, like, the entire state of the board, right? Like, hey, good versus evil, and he's just like, yep, here's the wrap up of, like, everything that's going on in the entire world in the struggle of good versus evil. Here's where the pieces are. Here's how the fight stands. So, and does it in a way that's pretty evocative, I thought.
It's a fantastic passage because you sit there and look at everything. Frodo's already made his choice, but that cements the choice even further because he looks at it and he's like, "There's nowhere else I can go. I've got to go right into the mouth of it all." And when he sits there and he sees this, basically, like, senses this finger creeping up to where he is. I mean, you just get this serious, intense, foreboding terror approaching. And it's just kind of like, damn, okay, the ring we already knew was a problem, but now this is another level of this problem that we hadn't seen before, even with the mirror. Now this shit's gonna get real.
Yeah. The part about the sense of dread that you get there, I love how Tolkien said that. So, like, all he said was, so that, he's looking around and he sees, a mountain of iron, gates of steel, tower of adamant. He saw it, Barad-dûr, fortress of Sauron. All hope left him. Bam. Four words, and you're just like, okay, he just got, crushed by that feeling. And suddenly he felt the eye. There was an eye in the dark tower that did not sleep. He knew that it had become aware of his gaze. A fierce, eager will was there. It leapt towards him, almost like a finger. He felt it searching for him. That was the passage for me where I was like, okay, I pretty fully buy Peter Jackson's kind of interpretation. I think I don't know that there's a better way you could have done it. So,
yeah, I think you could have waited to present it, not at the bar or the tavern.
Yeah, yeah, like we talked about before. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, anyone got any saved comments? We've come to the end.
There were no sudden cliffhangers for people to buy the sequel. Okay.
Well, what do you guys feel about cliffhangers? I don't like cliffhangers, to be completely honest.
I agree with you. I like a clean wrap up at the end of a book.
Yeah, as long as, I mean, there's really no cliffhanger here because this is only the first third of the book.
Yeah, Matt made a good point that the book was always written as one book, so it would make no sense to have cliffhangers kind of at any point, because the next chapter's right there. You just read the next chapter, right? But in general, I just don't like cliffhangers. I think that it's a cheap, kind of artificial way to try and drive tension and interest instead of just keeping your audience engaged.
The cheapness of a cliffhanger comes to with how it's resolved. That's my view. Like, I think my case in point, 24, that TV show, every fucking hour on the hour at minute 55, there was a cliffhanger. And then every fucking hour, minute 5, like, it was resolved and we're on to the next thing. Like, and most of the times it was actually like a cheap thing, like suspense drama, and then it gets solved really easy. So a cliffhanger that's actually like a big freaking, like, in literature, if it's not resolved super easily, I mean, that can be done well. But if it's like, haha, I tricked you again, or this is the typical chapter end cliffhanger, and then before the third page is done in the next chapter, it's all resolved. That's where you can basically start to criticize it as a device that gets kind of overused. But my view on a cliffhanger, they're not bad in and of itself or per se. It's all kind of, well, what are the actual stakes? Are you trying to mislead the reader with the stakes that you're introducing, yes or no?
I like that you brought it to a TV show, because I will admit that the source of my negative feelings about cliffhangers is the way it's used in TV shows. A book that just ends on something that, like, I mean, plenty of the Wheel of Time books end in something, epic and awesome, and you're just like, oh, I need to read the next book, right? And so sometimes, like, I don't necessarily consider it the same way. So when I think of it, it is the contrived cliffhanger where it's like, this is not really a crazy thing. It's not really built up. It's not going to have a great resolution. It's only dramatic because I ended it right here.
Yeah.
And so I think you make a good point. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Vic, you've been with us. You've read this whole book on a reread. I guess, how many times have you read this? You had some good knowledge, so
6 times, including everything with the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales, Gondolin, everything.
Wow, that's awesome. Does it get better every time? Are you enjoying this as much as the previous reads?
Yeah, now that I'm working, it's a bit more difficult to catch up every time. But like, my reading speed has slowed down a lot from when I was younger.
Paying attention. I get it. I used to be pretty proud of my reading speed when I was 10 years old, but now I'm realizing I skipped a lot of shit.
I've always read slow.
All right.
I don't know if I read fast or slow. I read at precisely the speed that a wizard should read.
Or Geldings.
Shush.
All right. I got one.
Assuming my gender.
So Vic, well, Dan's pulling this stuff. You mind answering the question in the chat?
Oh, that's actually, that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm a Southron, I know.
Hey,
I side with the Haradrim and
All right. Can you confirm? What are the blue wizards
Sauron's
doing?
your
Tell
boy.
us.
What?
I don't think it matters much, like, which culture was Tolkien wanting to write a British mythology. Like, it's fine, but the messages in the tale are what matters to me. Like, if he wants to invent a mythology, he's free to do so. And the message of, like, the good people standing up against evil, against all the odds against them. Plus, you can just see the level of disparity between Frodo and Sauron's wills. Like, Frodo sat on a chair for 5 seconds and Sauron was like on him and crushed him utterly. And still Frodo goes on. Like, any normal person would just run away and throw the ring.
Universally applicable lessons and values.
Yeah.
I have a
Well, it's a
related
good story.
Pretty similar lessons in the Bhagavad Gita also. Like, you just do the work and don't think of the outcome. Just do the work.
That leads kind of right into the question I was going to ask, which is that, for probably a lot of us, we're familiar with, we're familiar with Tolkien. We might not be familiar with similar kind of stories from. I don't want to necessarily say history, because Tolkien and Lord of the Rings is not history, but filling this similar space in kind of Indian culture. What would you recommend if someone's like, hey, I really want to go and read something that has some of these same timeless values and things? What do you have anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend people first reading the Mahabharata and then going on to Bhagavad Gita, because originally Bhagavad Gita is just a collection of chapters in the Mahabharata itself. So unless you read the whole Mahabharata, you won't get what's going on. So
Cool.
like it's almost like a Silmarillion plus Lord of the Rings in one book.
That's awesome. I know that's getting a movie adaptation, and I think a couple of them have already come out.
Hopefully not by Amazon.
No, actually, I believe it's by the guy who did RRR.
Oh no.
So it's going to be great.
Depends how
Vic,
they do the
what,
setups.
Vic, that's probably a good one as well. Other movies that we should watch from Indian cinema.
Like I don't watch many Indian cinema movies.
I was going to make a joke that was going to be your reply.
But the one I watch the most are the ones that I grew up with. So whenever I watched and pretty old movies with my dad, we'd put in the VCD in the VCD player and watch black and white movies and from Indian cinema. So I think a good Bollywood movie which has the proper subtitles, I don't know.
As long as he
do you
doesn't say
think
Slumdog Millionaire, I'll agree.
Oh no. Like that's like Danny Boyle taking a shit on India. Like I don't like that movie.
Oh, savage. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to hit you up in Discord and ask you for some of these both movie and books to kind of expand some cultural awareness, because you saying that some of these same kind of stories or these themes are being told. I mean, I think that's what most of us want in a story, right? We want an uplifting story that is, just good old fashioned, men and elves and whatever, like whatever that side of the equation is, but good versus evil, good triumphing the way that it's supposed to, Grimdark is overrated.
Very much so.
Like the Mahabharata also gets a bit grimdark when the battle is going on. So like it has everything for everybody.
Perfect.
Fair enough. I can't wait. I'm going to crack this.
Well, thank you. What's up, Alex?
No, I just said thank you
yeah.
for the recommendation. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say thanks again for being on with us. You're a great guest. We had a good conversation. And I guess I'll ask Nathan, are you dropping anything soon on your channel?
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep pressing you every time you're on here until you start putting out the Eye of the World script.
I know that. Wouldn't that be nice if I could get my butt going with it? There's too much shit going on. No, right now it's just been doing these book read sessions, and it's been a awesome thing to sit there and participate in. So I really appreciate being able to co-host with this and being able to spend time with Vic and being able to see him and put a face to the name. It's pretty damn awesome, because I've been seeing him in the chat for over a year now, and it's
I feel like Vic is in everybody's chat. He's all over the place, dropping just based comments and truth bombs and stuff like that. It is great to kind of meet you. Good point.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Based on your comments, I thought you
had a lot of
like
fun.
Nathan, so.
Oh man.
Anyway, yeah, seriously though, you're a fantastic guest. Absolutely love what you're doing. Keep it up. And I really want to get you back for some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'd be happy to be back.
All right, so what's next on the schedule, Pips? We're doing the rest of the film next week.
Oh
then
yeah,
the Discord?
next week we'll be finishing up the film. So we'll be finishing up the film, and then we'll be going on to Two Towers. So next week is second half of the movie. It'll be the extended edition, HD, all that stuff in the Discord. So look out for links there. And then we'll be going into the next book. We'll continue to have guests coming on and having a good discussion about the books. So thank you everyone that's been in the chat. It's been informative, really good questions, and we love having you guys on. And I think we have we drug on enough, guys. Are we ready to end it? All right.
Go.
Well, Alex has got the outro today, so you can end the stream. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Bye, everybody.